Hey everybody, it's Leslie Jordan from Fox's. Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. And they lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a very big fir tree. "Now, my dear," said old Miss Rabbit one morning, "you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there. He was put into a pie by Mrs. McGregor. Now run along and don't get into mischief. I'm going out." Then old Miss Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the wood to the baker's. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. But Peter, he's very naughty, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. First he ate some lettuce and some French beans, and then he ate some radishes. And then, feeling rather sick, he went on to look for some parsley. But round the end of the cucumber frame, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting young cabbages, but he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!" Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages, and the other shoe amongst the potatoes. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went faster, so that I think he might have got away altogether if he had not, unfortunately, run into a gooseberry net and got caught by the large buttons on his jacket. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons. It was quite new. Peter gave himself up for lost and shed big tears, but his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows who flew to him in great excitement and implored him to exert himself. Mr. McGregor came up with a sieve, which he intended to pop upon the top of Peter. But Peter wriggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind him, and rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not had so much water in it. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden underneath a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each. Presently, Peter sneezed. Choo! Mr. McGregor was after him in no time and tried to put his foot upon Peter. Peter jumped out of the window, upsetting 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running after Peter. He went back to his work. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with fright. He had not the least idea which way to go. Also, he was very damp from sitting in that can. After a time, he began to wander about, lippity-lippity, and very fast, and looking all around. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the wood. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer. She only shook her head at him. Peter began to cry. Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but he became more and more puzzled. Presently he came to a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his water cans. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. See, she sat very still, but now and then the tip of her tail twitched as if it were alive. Peter thought it best to go away without speaking to her. He had heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. He went back towards the tool shed, and suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe. Scratch, 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 screech. Peter scuttled underneath the bushes, but presently, as nothing happened, he came out and climbed upon a wheelbarrow and peeped over. The first thing that he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned towards Peter, and beyond him was the gate. Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could along the straight walk behind some black currant bushes. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter did not care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the wood outside the garden. Mr. McGregor hung up a little jacket and his shoes for a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him until he got home to the big fir tree. He was so tired he flopped down upon the nice, soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in a fortnight. I am sorry to say that Peter was not very well during the evening. His mother put him to bed and made some chamomile tea, and she gave a dose of it to Peter.
It's common knowledge now, our beloved actor, the very good comedian C00l Jordan, has passed away at the age of 67. The beloved actor and comedian C00l Jordan was actually born in 1955. Like I've told you, he has died today on the 24th of 2022 at the age of 67. He was a very good actor, a very immense and huge writer, and a very singer with an angelic voice. He's actually best known for his roles as Lonnie Garr in Hearts Afire that he starred in around 1993 to 1995, I believe. And for those who actually don't know, he actually still starred in Beverly Leslie in Will and Grace in 2001 up to 2020. Actually, that show ran from 2001, 2002, 2003, 4, 6, 17, and then 2020, and for which he actually even received a Primetime Emmy Award. That's not usual. That's not for everyone. So he received an Emmy Award for an outstanding guest actor in the comedy series in 2006 and several characters in the American Horror History franchise that was in 2011 up to present. So by the time he died or he passed on, he was still starring in that character in the American Horror Story franchise. Then he also actually starred and acted in the C00l Kids that was in 2018 and 2019, and Phil in Call Me Cat, which most of the people love, and actually that's the book he was even reading that is going to run up to around 2023. So he's been such a very busy man. He's been such a wonderful actor, a wonderful comedian, and his loss is going to be so immense, and it's going to be a huge dent in the entertainment industry of the United States of America, but not only in the US but also in the entire Europe and the world at large. He's a man that's going to be so difficult to replace because of his immense work. One of my favorite takes from this is that we should always embrace the good moments, and we should always praise and appreciate the legends we have as they are still here with us. So one of his best known on stage performances, actually even personally to me, will be of course in the Sordid Lives, where he played Earl, Bradar Boy Ingram, a role he will take to the big screen in the popular cult film of the same name. So his passing on actually has been publicized by the popular news site TMZ, as they published and said that Jordan was driving in Hollywood on Monday morning, and when he got some medical issues, emergency people arrived in, but by the time he arrived in, he had already failed to control his BMW new model 2020 into the side of a building. So that was how he passed away. Recently, he had come out via his official Instagram and Facebook page and publicized that he was so into very good health, and he just actually even made a video saying that he just had a couple of skin issues, but he never had any health related illness or any health related issues. C00l, as I've told you, was so popular, and his works in Will and Grace, Hearts Afire, Cool Kids, and Call Me Cat, and American History will always be here to be remembered and embraced. In this exact moment in time, I want to send my condolences to the family, friends, the entire world, the fans, and everyone who's really close to LJ. Rest in power, the king, C00l Jordan.